In this video, we will learn the input-output mode of our 8255 PPI. In the previous video, we have learned how to solve an example with the help of this PSR mode. The link for the video I have given in the description box. So now in this lecture, we will learn how we can solve the example with the help of input-output mode. So this is the block structure will be given, that is called as a control word format of our input-output mode of 8255 PPI. So here you can check this D7 bit is always set to 1 when your PPI will be working in our input-output mode. So I am writing here 1 in case of D7 bit. In case of 8255 architecture, there are two groups will be available, that is group A and group B. There are different modes of operation will be available in our group structure. Whenever we are considering the group A architecture, that time there are three modes of operation, that is mode 0, mode 1 and mode 2. And in case of group B, there are two modes, that is mode 0 and mode 1. Whenever your structure will be there for our group A structure, that time for mode 0 we are writing here 0 0. For mode 1 we are writing 0 1, and for mode 2 we are writing 1x or 1 0. So x indicates that is the don't care condition, and that is not defined in our code structure. For group B modes of operation, there are two modes, that is 0 and 1. For mode 0 we are writing here 0, and for mode 1 we are writing 1. Now in this diagram you can see this D5 and D6, these two bits will be available, and that indicates that the mode selection of our port A structure. So whenever I am selecting this mode, that is mode number 1 from our port A structure and group A structure, that time I am writing here 0 and 1 in our D5 and D6 bit. So I am writing here D0 and D6 bit will be set to 0 and D5 bit will be set to 1. Now this next part is, that is D4 bit, and that is indicate that the input and output function of our port A structure. So whenever you are considering here the group A structure, it consists of port A and the upper part of our port C. So here this D3 bit will be set for our input-output functions of our port C upper part, and our D4 bit will be set for our port A functions of our input-output function. So here we have completed with our group A structure. So this part will be included for our group A structure. Whenever we have to set the input function, that time we are writing here 1, and whenever I have to set the output function, then I am writing here 0. So this bit will be used for our port A, and this next bit I am using here for port C upper part. Now here we have completed with our group A structure. Now we will begin with our group D structure. So in this diagram you can see the first bit, that is the D2 bit, will be used for the mode selection of our port B structure, and there are two modes, that is 0 and 1. So this bit will be used for mode. This is also used for mode, and now the D1 bit will be used for the input-output functions of our port B structure. So this will be used for port B structure. And the last bit, that is the D0 bit, will be used for the port C lower part. So in this way we can set our input-output mode of our control word format. And this part will be considered here as a group D structure, and this will be considered here as a group A structure. And this D7 bit will be indicate that your PPI will be working in our input-output mode. So now let's we begin with our examples. So the question is, configure port A as input output in mode 0, port B as output in mode 0, port C lower as output and port C upper as input port. First of all, we have to check which mode is there. So here given is input output mode. So I'm setting here in D7 bit. If it is a PSR mode, then we are writing here 0. If it is an input output mode, then I'm writing here 1. So in the example, the mode is given, that is input output mode. So I'm using here the control word format of our input output mode. This is also called as a control word format programming of 8255 and the command word format of our 8255. So now the next bit will be the D5 bit and the D6 bit. So these two bits will be set for modes of our port A structure. And here in the example, the mode is given, that is mode 0. And for 0, we are writing 0 and 0. Now next one is what is given. We have to set our configure our port A as input in our mode 0 of our operation. So for configuring our port A as the input, we are writing here 1 for our input. We have already learned that for setting the input operation, we have to write down 1 in our bit structure, and whenever we have to set as the output, that time we are writing 0 in our control word format. So in the example, what is given? Configure port A as the input in mode 0. So we have set here mode, then we have set here port A. Now the next part is port B will be set as the output mode in mode 0. So till now we have set with our port A structure, and now we have to set the port B. So where is the port B? This is our port B, and we have to set it into output mode. For setting it into output mode, I am writing here 0. And in case of port B also, we are setting the mode here, and this D2 bit will be considered for mode of our port B. And in the example, the mode is given, that is 0. So I am writing here 0. Now the next one is the structure will be given for port C lower and the port C upper. So for setting the port C lower and the port C upper, the bits are given, that is for port C, it is setting in output mode. So in case of lower mode of our port C, I am writing here 0 because it is operated in our output mode. And for port C structure, that is in case of upper mode, it is set in input port. So for port C upper part, I am putting here 1. So we will get our result as 100110000. So here our bits are set as 100110000. So it will be indicated as 98H.